Welcome to the lesson on extending Help Desk. In this lesson, you'll address some common questions. For example, why would you want to extend Help Desk? In what ways can you extend Help Desk? And where can you get more information on extending Help Desk? What are some reasons you might want to extend Help Desk? First, you might want to modify the user interface. For example, you might want to expose an existing field, since not all fields on the object are available by default. You might want to create an entirely new field and expose that. You might want to hide an existing field. Perhaps you want to rearrange the order of fields on the page, or change the way fields are displayed. For example, change a text box to a text area. You might want to perform more complex modifications. For example, adding validation to a single field or performing multiple field validation. You might want even more complex business logic. For example, you might want to add triggers to your page, add notifications, create a workflow that's triggered when some event happens, perform calculations, or other complex business logic. To approach modifying your application, you need to have an understanding of the Model View Controller model of application design. The model provides the underlying data model for the application, such as business objects and fields. The view presents the data to the user. The controller manages interactions between the model and the view. The reason this is important is because the tool you use to modify the application depends on the layer. To modify the model, for example, to create a new field, you use a tool called Application Composer. To modify the view, for example, to expose that new field in the user interface, you use a tool called Visual Builder Studio, or VB Studio for short. Working with the controller is more complex because in some cases, such as field-level validation, you can use either Application Composer or VB Studio, while in other cases you need to use one or the other. For example, only Application Composer can trigger a workflow. Application Composer is an in-application tool. You need the Sales Administrator role to work with it. The general steps are to create a sandbox, which is your own independent work area for making application changes. Once you're in the sandbox, use Application Composer to modify the HR Help Desk object. First, verify that you're in a sandbox. Next, select the HR Help Desk request object. Within the object, you can create new fields. You can add server scripts such as validations, triggers, or object functions. You can modify child objects, or outside of the HR Help Desk request object, you can create object workflows based on that object. Suppose you decide to create a custom date and time field in Application Composer to represent the date and time of a reported incident. For example, if an employee is contesting a paycheck amount, the employee could enter the paycheck date here. When you create the field, it's important to note the display label, which is what is displayed to users. The name is used internally, so you need to know that when you're going to work with it in VB Studio. You also want to select the Include in Service Payload checkbox because that makes the field available in the RESTful web services for Help Desk, and VB Studio uses those web services to access the data model. Once you've created your field in Application Composer, you need to work in VB Studio. VB Studio is a separate application from Help Desk. As an administrator, you need to create a project based on the application extension template and select Help Desk as the application. This sets up the environment for all of your developers. You only need to do this once when you first get started working with VB Studio, but it's an important step. Once an administrator has created a project, you need to start VB Studio. To do this, navigate to the page that you want to edit. For example, the HR Help Desk Request Details page. Notice that you're still in a sandbox. Expand the Settings and Actions menu and select Edit Page in Visual Builder. This will navigate you to VB Studio. Once you've started VB Studio, you're asked to create a workspace if you haven't already created one. A workspace is very similar to a sandbox. It's your own personal work area for VB Studio. Workspaces are sandbox aware, meaning that any changes you made in your Application Composer sandbox are available here in VB Studio as well. Notice that using the Help Desk navigation brought you directly to the page you want to edit in VB Studio. Once you're in VB Studio, you may expose, hide, or rearrange fields, change the way a field is displayed, add minor business logic such as validation to a field, or more. Since your workspace is sandbox aware, incident date and time is available. Notice that it uses the internal name of the field. Drag and drop it where you want it to appear on the page. Fields are displayed in the order in which they're listed. Notice that by default, the display label is the label you specified in Application Composer. VB Studio includes a preview mode so you can verify that your field is visible on the page and behaves in the manner you expect. Once you've made your changes, you need to perform two publish actions. First, you need to publish your Application Composer sandbox. This makes any model changes you made available in the application. You publish your Application Composer sandbox in the Help Desk application. Next, you need to publish your VB Studio workspace. This makes any view changes you made available to the application. You've published your VB Studio workspace in VB Studio. What about control changes? They get brought along whenever you publish your sandbox or your workspace. For more information on working with Application Composer, you can go to Oracle University and take the Oracle CX Sales and B2B Service Composers and Scripting course. There are also multiple documents on Application Composer, including configuring and extending applications, configuring applications using Application Composer, and the Groovy scripting reference. There's even a My Oracle support document on performance best practices for extending Oracle CX Sales and B2B Service. For more information on working with VB Studio, you can consult the documentation, where there's Extending Cloud Applications with Visual Builder Studio. Pre-release documentation is available by invitation at the site listed here. It includes both documentation, such as implementing Redwood Help Desk, and many video tutorials on how to use VB Studio to extend your application. In summary, here are the key points about extending Help Desk. Your business requirements will likely need application extensions. Use Application Composer and sandboxes to extend the model layer. Use VB Studio and workspaces to extend the view layer. Publish sandboxes and workspaces to make the changes available to your users. Thanks for watching.